think that it's both sides are trying to put as much pressure on the other, and it's a waiting game of sorts. But I do think that the possibility for escalation is very high. I think Trump is, and I cannot say for out of personal knowledge, but I think that Trump is exaggerating the amount of oil that actually leaves through the Strait of Hormuz for the election and for election purposes. And the Iranians, I think they are planning to keep the pressure, the economic pressure on the United States as much as possible, and in the hope that Trump does poorly in the elections. Although the Iranians are exporting oil, they don't declare it openly. And Iran is allowing friendly countries like Iraq, which didn't participate in the war, to export its oil. And on the other side of the Persian Gulf, there are small ships that take fuel, that take oil from one side of the strait to the other. And they're not large ships, so it's a very expensive operation, a costly operation, but also an operation that does not allow for a huge amount of oil to get through the strait. So I do think that the Iranian numbers are more accurate than the American numbers.
Wow. Are the Pakistanis continuing to be the mediators? Are they passing messages from the Americans to the Iranians, from the Iranians to the Americans, as far as you can tell? Or is there no effective or meaningful communication going on between the two combatants? And that's a long-winded question. I apologize for it. So take the ball and run with it as you see fit. Are the Omanis involved as mediators as well?
Yes, and if you add Doha, yes, as well. All of them have brought messages from the United States. And one important point that I think people rarely acknowledge is the fact that Oman, as an ally of the United States and as a country that has been threatened twice by Trump with death and destruction, the last time, of course, he used the word SHIT, he'll bomb them to so-and-so. Oman has made progress with Iran on the management of the strait, and which includes taking fees and which includes joint cooperation. And Oman is doing this with U.S. consent. If the United States did not want these negotiations to take place, if they wanted to prevent progress from taking place, they would have threatened Oman, and Oman would have pulled back. So the very fact that Oman has come to an agreement with Iran shows that what is going on behind the scenes is not the same as what we're hearing in the media and what we're hearing from the White House.
All right, Chris, can you put the map back that showed that sort of line between that broken line between the two sides? There you go. So does that line, that purple line in the middle of the map of the Strait of Hormuz, pretty much the top part is Iranian territory, the bottom part is Omani, or do I have that in reverse?
I don't know if it's that exact line, but yes, to the north, at the top of the screen, that's Iranian territory, those Iranian islands. That's Qeshm, that large island is Qeshm Island. And to the south is Oman. And then to the south of Oman, on its two sides, there's the United Arab Emirates. So this small part of Oman is separate from the bulk of the country. The country is in two pieces. This small piece is in the strait. That's why Iran negotiates with Oman. And what the Emiratis are doing is that they transport some oil from the left-hand side of the screen over Oman under that purple line to the right side of the screen. So small ships take oil from large tankers, cross the strait, and then they they give them back. The other tankers, super tankers, are outside waiting for them. They fill up those tankers. So each tanker, you can imagine, a large number of small ships have to go back and forth to fill those tankers.
All right. I guess it is clear from what you've just said that the United States does not control the Strait of Hormuz, that it is controlled jointly and amicably by the Omanis and the Iranians.
Yes, that is pretty clear. And even those small ships that go back and forth all the time to transport oil, they are tolerated by Iran. These are parts of different mini agreements that Iran has with countries in the Persian Gulf. So the Iranians and, for example, the Emirates, they have a lot of interest, even though the two sides have been hostile towards each other. The Emiratis have helped the United States attack Iran. Iran has, of course, struck back. But the two sides do cooperate in economic areas. So that those small boats that you see that go across the Strait of Hormuz, they are Emirati, and these are not privately owned boats. This is a government company, or I think maybe two government companies, I'm not quite sure, which carry out this operation. And for the most part, it's tolerated by Iran. Then, on the other hand, the Emiratis do things for Iran.
This is what we hear in the West about who controls Hormuz. This is ridiculous, but this is what we hear. Chris, cut number 18.
On the economic fury and all the pressure that he can bring to bear. And we know that Iran can't handle it. Ultimately, their economy is in a spiral. They also know that we control the Strait of Hormuz, that our blockade is ironclad, and that oil is flowing through, ultimately. And you've seen some of the numbers. Iran can't run anything through. We can. The world economy realizes that. And so they made a big bet on controlling it, and they can't.
Is any of that even remotely true?
Well, if a company in the United States, let's say Microsoft or anyone else, if every day they say that, look, our finances are in order, we're in good shape, and they say it every single day, you can be pretty sure that something's wrong and that their finances have serious problems. The very fact that he keeps saying this, Trump keeps saying it, if it's open, then they don't have to say it all the time. But the reality is that no, very little oil is getting through, and that oil that gets through, for the most part, has Iran's permission. Whether it's a major tanker, a super tanker, or one of these small ships, they have Iranian consent. Some of them do get through without Iranian consent, but that's not large in number. And then on the other hand, you have the Bab al-Mandab Strait at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, where Saudi shipping has serious problems. Ships rarely go through, and that's why Saudi oil exports from the Red Sea have declined. The body of water to the north, at the top of the screen, they've declined, and also it's become much more expensive because insurance companies demand much more money. As shipping companies, except for the Saudi state-owned company, demand more money, and also the ships have to go all around the African continent. So it's a much more expensive process. In general, the situation is not ideal at all for Trump. And I think, although Iran would never say it, I think that this is going to be permanent, but especially until the U.S. elections, I think the Iranians would like to see Trump face more economic uncertainty and difficulty. And the Iranians are carefully monitoring the bond market, the Japanese currency, and other key aspects of the U.S. economy.
Back to Secretary Hegseth. Where is the United States Navy? Is it still 600 nautical miles away from the actual strait?
Yes, they're no closer than they were before. They are fearful of Iranian missiles, although the Iranians say that they have missiles that they can strike them from where they are right now. My belief and my understanding is that the Iranians do not want to strike U.S. Ships. They have hit 2 or 3 American naval ships near the Strait of Hormuz during the fighting with drones, not with missiles. They hit them with drones to cause sort of minimal damage, but not to sink them. And I think striking naval ships is something that the Iranians will only consider if the war escalates further.
Wow.
Beyond a certain point.
Got it. Our mutual friend and colleague, Pepe Escobar, reports that President Trump, I'm going to use Pepe's word, is daily, every day, begging Field Marshal Munir for a breakthrough. Now, Field Marshal Munir is the head of the army in Pakistan, arguably a more powerful position than Prime Minister. But Trump calls him on the phone, according to Pepe, and Pepe, along with our colleague Larry Johnson, have sources in Pakistani intel. Trump is looking for a breakthrough, an exit that doesn't look like an exit. What do the Iranians think about that?
Well, the messages that do come to Iran from Pakistan, from Oman, from Qatar, although there may be others that I don't know of, more or less are the same, and that he is seeking some sort of solution where which won't make him look humiliated. But the Iranians are saying nothing less than the full implementation of the MOU is acceptable. That is the agreement that we had. That is what he signed. And Article 1 of that means that the Israeli regime must withdraw from Lebanon and end the war. It must end the genocide in Gaza. And of course, Trump never implemented the MOU at all, and he was in full violation. Western media likes to say that it was the Iranians who violated the MOU, but it was the exact opposite. The United States never handed over Iran's stolen assets. They never removed the oil sanctions for more than a week. After a week, they revived them. They also continued to impose new sanctions, which was a violation of the deal. They continued to threaten Iran, which was a violation of the deal. And most importantly, while they were in violation of all the other articles, then Trump established this corridor through the Strait of Hormuz, which was in violation of Article 5. Iran was supposed to manage it till normalization, but Trump wanted to undermine Iran's position through the MOU, rather than because he couldn't do it in war and he couldn't do it in the first siege. So the Iranians are saying, you signed this piece of paper and you have to implement it, and that's why there's no progress. But again, I'm not. When we say there's no progress, that is true at one level, but then on the other, when we do see the United States allowing Oman to make progress with Iran for the future about the joint management of the strait, which includes taking fees, then we see it's more complicated than what it seems on the surface.
Are both sides rearming during this interregnum, this period of relative ceasefire?
Yes, the Iranians are rearming very swiftly. For the first time, I'm not sure, but I think for the first time, we saw footage of an underground missile factory in Iran. So we know that Iran, and we've seen multiple underground missile bases, we've seen underground drone bases, we've seen underground naval bases for speedboats and underground bases where they keep anti-aircraft systems and so on. But we've never actually seen footage of underground factories where they actually build those missiles, where they actually have R&D for developing new missiles and better technology. We saw that 3 or 4 days ago. And the Iranians are expanding their underground missile bases and underground drone bases. They're developing new missiles and more missiles with greater precision and maneuverability. And the Iranians have an advantage because for them it is easier building these missiles than it is for the Americans to build their own missiles, and especially build anti-aircraft missile systems or anti-air or anti-missile systems. As we all know, the United States it has critical shortages, and it's very expensive and very slow in building these systems. So Iran can build these at industrial pace, similar to like Russia when it comes to their missile program and drone program. But the Americans, they have much greater challenges. So at least for now, the longer this takes, the longer we have quiet on the front, the more to the advantage it is for the Iranians.
Wow. I mean, does Iran expect that the violent part of the war, what they call the kinetic part of the war, will resume once the U.S. elections are over? That's only 2 months away.
I think that is something that the Iranians believe is quite likely. Just last night, General Rezai, the chair of the Supreme National Security Council, had an interview with Al-Manar TV. Al-Manar TV is closely affiliated to the resistance in Lebanon. And in that interview, he said, sooner or later, we are going to send Netanyahu to hell. So, and by the way, in that interview, he said that the claims that Iran was trying to kill Trump's son is nonsense, and that he also said that Iran is not doing anything to carry out an attack on Trump, but he did say that sooner or later we're going to send Netanyahu to hell. So obviously they must be accepting some sort of violence in the future for them to be able to do such a thing.
Wow. The sanctions, by the way, this that we're posting now was posted by President Trump. New U.S. territory, Strait of Hormuz. Now, according to the Supreme Court of the United States, anyone born in the U.S. territory is an American citizen who can vote. I'm sure he didn't think of that. He hated that birthright decision. Of course, I'm sure he didn't think of that when he posted that absurd graphic claiming that the United States owns the Strait of Hormuz, a claim that he has made verbally a couple of times. Let's go to his economy-wrecking, bank-wrecking, nonsensical Secretary of the Treasury. I mean, does Scott Bessent really think he can intimidate Chinese banks out of funding Iranian businesses?
Definitely not. But Judge, that the problem is that what the United States has been doing for the last 6 months is that it has been telling the world, look how weak we are. Because when Hegseth for the last 6 months has been saying we've destroyed the Air Force, their Navy, their all of their capabilities, and their armed forces, and Iran is still standing, that is telling the world that we are much weaker than you thought. And when the Treasury Department regularly says on a daily basis now that Iran is collapsing, and it's been a few days since D-Day. Every day that goes by, it weakens the United States as its image as all powerful when it comes to being able to strangle countries through sanctions and through economic warfare. So he now, when he tweets and when he speaks, he's sounding increasingly like Hegseth. And then after a few weeks, when Iran has not collapsed, of course Iran has serious economic problems. We have inflation, we have shortages, and all that. But when Iran hasn't collapsed, then I think that is going to cause countries across the world to be more assertive when confronting U.S. threats, whether they're economic or political or military.
But don't Bessent and his team understand the unshakable economic and geopolitical relationship between Iran and China? And do they really think that they can disturb this? I mean, it is a violation of Chinese law for a Chinese bank voluntarily to comply with an American sanction.
I would imagine he does, but there are many things that are being done by the United States that are beyond my comprehension. I mean, for example, Judge, during the war, the Americans would repeatedly bomb Iranian missile bases, day and night. Some of them really, heavy bombing. And yet these missile bases were continuing to function. And when I was sometimes asking friends who were more knowledgeable what's going on, they said, no, these bases are all safe. And I would say, are you sure? Then why do they bomb them all the time if it's useless? And he said, I don't know. We don't know either. So the United States has been doing a lot of ridiculous things during the past 6 months against Iran and more than the past 6 months. I think he knows, but perhaps he's promised Trump, or Trump is demanding that he bring down the Iranians, and he's saying, I'll do as you say. But at the end of the day, it's not going to work. Maybe in a few weeks, you'll see some protests here and there because of the shortage of, bread, or a shortage of meat, or the inflation of something somewhere. I mean, inflation here, but that's not going to bring down the government. And what the Iranians are going to do in response is the same thing. They're going to weaken the U.S. economy. They're going to increase the shortages of helium and sulfur and oil and other products, petrochemical and refined products from the Arabian Peninsula. So ultimately it's going to reflect on, it's going to cause misery for Trump in the election. It's going to cause economic pain at home, and countries across the world are going to blame Trump and Netanyahu for their own misery. So they can hurt Iran, but it's only useful to them. I mean, it's a crime against humanity what they're doing, because they're targeting civilians and they want to make civilians suffer. But that aside, it's only successful if this is not a double-edged sword. If you're going to impose these suffering on Iranians and you're not suffering in return, okay, well, it may be evil, but you may succeed. But if you are also bringing about suffering to your own side, then I think that is extremely foolish.